Hello and welcome to rounds 9 and 10 of TGP2, live here in the Netherlands for the last 4 minutes of qualifying. I'm Mr. Chappelli, and joining me in the commentary box is Jovial Manti, and I believe one of the only drivers in TGP1, if not the only driver, to have a 100% podium record this season. Welcome, Roy.
Thank you, Luca. I'm now the only driver with a 100% podium record. In TGP1 with a one out of one hit rate. Looking forward to tonight. Two very different tracks in a similar region of the world, very different challenges awaiting the drivers tonight with the tight and technical circuit here at Zandvoort, and then heading on to Spa, which is full of long straights and big open sweeping corners. So both should be quite interesting tonight.
Yeah, it's a good point there. As you say, two very, very different polar opposite tracks there. A winding, twisting track here in the Netherlands where drivers really need to pick their lines for the best quali lap. But when it comes to the race, they need to nurse their tyres, fuel, and battery a lot more than they would do in Belgium. So, how much of a toll mentally do you reckon this has on the drivers?
Yeah, it's I think for this track, from memory anyway, I think it's one of the harsher ones on battery management in qualifying for whatever reason. You tend to run out before the line. Same with Belgium actually, but that is to be expected with the length of the track. But there's a lot to manage here. But overtaking around this circuit is a lot more difficult than it is at Belgium. But in both tracks, though, you still have to be very mindful of how you use your deployment, because you kind of need to save your deployment around this circuit for the main straight, as it is the main overtaking opportunity. Whereas when we come to Belgium later on, there's a lot more opportunities. So you have to be quite tactical with how you use your deployment, considering how powerful it is.
Yeah, indeed. As we're just following Daniel P. Wheelnut on what I assume will be his final attempt around the Zandvoort circuit. He's just over a tenth up on his first sector time, so hoping to get onto that second row, maybe hopefully take a few more tenths out of this time to really promote himself up the order. But looking like he's keeping this nice and tidy for now. Gets a nice good line through that sweeping left-hander and DRS wide open as we go down the back straight. Let's see what his sector 2 time is going to be here. Sector 2 time, he's still up a tenth, so maybe challenging for third place. And not the greatest camera angle to see how he was going around those set of corners, but comes into the penultimate corner, has to get a really good drive off this and not take too much curb. It's a decent line, nice and tight round the long sweeping banks right-hander, DRS wide open as he goes down to the line, nice and tight up to that pit straight. What's it going to be? It's third place. He's 2 tenths up on his time. I believe Wet Lemon's also on a flying attempt at the moment. Not sure what his first sector time was there, but looking good for Daniel P. Wheelnut and possibly even for Wet Lemons, Roy.
Yeah, I think Wayno just took maybe a bit too much curb in that middle sector. I think he did compromise himself through the middle bit, because he improved in the first and third sectors, but not the middle one. And Wet Lemons then, I believe he was 4 tenths up there on his own time. So he could, if he can improve further in this final sector, challenge for pole position. It's a nice line through the penultimate corner. You don't want to take too much of that exit curb because it will unsettle the car. DRS wide open. He's got slightly further around the lap actually than Wilnot did without running out of deployment. And indeed, it is P3. Didn't quite have that improvement in the final sector, but P3, I think he can be fairly happy with that.
Indeed, as we go on to see what Lewis Craig's doing. Not sure if Lewis Craig is on a flyer. He is right behind another car here, so hopefully he's not going to get held up. Not sure if that car's gotten out of the way. I think it has, yes. So coming through that banked left-hander, as we did see Speed Sully lose it on the exit of that before the stream started. So unfortunate qualifying for Speed Sully. Lewis Craig is 2.5 seconds down on his fastest attempt so far, so not a good start for his lap. We're going to go over to Mike Chris Johnson, sorry. Who's coming around the final corner. DRS is going to be wide open. What's this attempt going to be? Comes up to the line, and it is a 1:12 dead, just 2 tenths quicker than his fastest attempt there. So that's his qualifying over in sixth place. Baza coming through the second sector as well. Not sure how he's been doing on his lap, but we'll soon see. But yeah, all important track position here. So drivers really want to get the best out of this qualifying. But it looks like Baza has actually um, aborted that attempt as his DRS isn't open. He's going quite slow. Mick Schumacher as
Jack
well.
Craig
Jack
across the
Craig
line.
across the line and up to fifth place for Jack Craig, 111.9. So he'll be happy with that attempt. And I believe that's actually going to be our qualifying over now, Roy.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what this Williams is doing here, but yeah, that once he's finished doing whatever that is, we will have our grid. And it's a shame for Magic Poop Cannon though, because he did disconnect from the session. I noticed when I was on board with him earlier, he was lagging all over the place. I'm kind of hoping that's resolved, but still good enough for P2. Can't help but feel that yeah, potentially with an extra run could have got that pole position, but hey, also look forward to in the race. Hopefully those internet issues are resolved for his and the other driver's sake. But yeah, another pole position for Lewis Craig.
Yeah, indeed, and you'll be happy with that. Track position is all important, as I said earlier, but we do have some hope for the other drivers, as I've been told there is a 59% chance of rain in the race. So could all be shook up here by the rain as it normally is in TGP2. And yeah, all to play for. A great circuit with lots of challenging corners as well. Drivers very easily can lose it around here. So stay tuned and you will soon see what happens. But we'll run through your order at the moment. So Lewis Craig getting another pole position there in first place with Magic Poop Cannon just half a tenth behind him. So really, really close there. Wet Lemons in third and Daniel P. Wheelnut in fourth, not quite being able to make up to the third place there. Jack Craig in fifth, a good qualifying from him, and Mike Noonan sixth, with Chris Johnson, the most talkative man in TGP, in seventh place. Baza in eighth, with M. Shep in ninth, and Speed Sully rounding out a top 10. Speed Sully on the mediums, but didn't get another attempt. Nell Jack in 11th, Say Sports in 12th, Mick Schumacher in 13th, Kaya in 14th, Jacko in 15th, and Parser rounding out our order there. 11.7 seconds behind the pace as well, so maybe not the best qualifying for him. But Roy, if the rain's going to be coming later on in the session, in the race, sorry, what tyres do you reckon these drivers will choose?
It depends. Like, you might want to go for mediums in case that the weather forecast is inaccurate and the rain doesn't come as quick as it says it will. So, you can take those mediums a good bit into the race. Or you could be risky and, if you want to go for the softs and, trust the weather. I mean, we'll have to see because it could be wet from the outset here, but hopefully it's a mixed condition race and hopefully it actually starts off dry. We're about to find out as our screens load. Get a nice shot of the pit lane. Oh yeah, no, that's not ready for slicks. So
No. So,
yeah,
yeah, it's definitely going to be a wet start here. Whether the drivers will be able to go on the intermediates or the full wets, we're not 100% sure yet, but I'm sure their engineers will be in their ears telling them what the best choice will be from the start here. And if this is going to be a wet race throughout, we'll have to see how this develops. But yeah, wet to dry conditions are always really, really good races to watch and really interesting. And obviously, drivers will have to be really careful with their starts and into turn one as well. So yeah, I'm sure this will be a drama-filled Netherlands race as we wait for the drivers to be ready up and to wait for the lights to start going red as we sit here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights illuminated and lights out and away they go. And there's some decent start there from Lewis Craig. Magic Poop Cannon seems to bog down a bit with Wet Lemons taken into second place. And there's a bit of contact going through the middle of there, but it seems to be relatively clean so far as they've all seemed to have made it round. No spins so far, but Lewis Craig out to a commanding start there with 7 tenths ahead. Magic Poop Cannon has unfortunately dropped that position. They are on the intermediate tyres, as I might have mentioned just before, but relatively clean there, Roy.
Yeah, I think the drivers at the front will be relatively relieved with that. And Magic Poop Cannon, I mentioned his internet issues earlier on. They seem to be, they don't seem to be an issue at the moment. So I think everyone will be relieved with that. But Wet Lemons there got the ideal start, getting ahead of Magic Poop Cannon. But yeah, Lewis Craig seemed to have really nice launch control there. And I think I did actually see Magic Poop Cannon's car jump around a little bit there. So hopefully that doesn't return. But Magic Poop Can at this point, he does seem to be all over the back of Wet Lemons.
Yeah, we actually saw Baza go for a spin there coming into that long right-hander. It looks like it's going to be a wet race throughout, looking at that predicted pit stop strategy, as we also had Mick Schumacher have an incident as well. So we're not sure what happened there, but unfortunate for those two drivers, as you say, Magic Poop Cannon was right on the back of him. Seems to have dropped back a bit now with Daniel P. Wheelnut giving him a bit of pressure, and Mike Noon right on the back of Daniel P. Wheelnut there. So still really good, as we've actually got some moves going on in for the lead of the race, as Lewis Craig's got the fastest lap and Wet Lemons up the inside. Can he make it stick? Lewis Craig still on the outside. Lewis Craig has to now concede that position, but Wet Lemons getting an opportunistic move there, Roy.
Yeah, and it's probably best to arrive and catch your rival by surprise here, because there will be no DRS in this race. So overtaking at this track is going to be even more difficult. So you need to get the moves done whenever you can. And Wet Lemons, he sees his opportunity and straight up into the lead. Wet Lemons does tend to excel in these conditions, so it's not really too surprising to see him have the pace around here. Lewis Craig seems to be dropping off ever so slightly from the Alfa Romeo. Maybe
so we've had a moment with Lewis Craig.
It.
Sorry to interrupt there. Lewis Craig seems to have got all out of shape, and Magic Poop Cannon's right on the back of him now. Daniel P. Wheelnut coming into this, and Mike Noon was on the back of Daniel P. Wheelnut, just coming into that long right-hander when Daniel P. Wheelnut got out of shape. Sorry to interrupt there, Roy.
No problem at all. We could soon have a 4-car battle here for second place at the looks by the looks of things, because Wet Lemons is beginning to build that gap, as Amazon showed me the pit strategy for the 4th time in 2 laps. But Magic Poop Cannon there, a little bit of understeer through that penultimate corner, and that gives Lewis Craig a bit of breathing room. Let's have a quick look, if I can, at their battery percentages. And Lewis Craig, he has actually saved a good bit more than Magic Poop Cannon behind him. The one who's looking worst of this top 5 group is Magic Poop Cannon in P3, but Wet Lemons then is actually on a decent level of battery, so it's not like he's just used that to streak away. So he has room to defend here.
Yeah, it's good, and he does seem to excel, as F1 Baz 86 gets a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Must have had some damage, and that is only going to compound on his problems in this race. But Magic Poop Cannon now right on the back of Lewis Craig as he's coming through this twisty section, probably getting better traction. Didn't quite catch that, but Lewis Craig under pressure, as Daniel P. Wheelnut under pressure from Mike Noon as well. So plenty of battles going on here, and we're seeing the order changing between Speed Sully and Official Parser further down the field. So great to see some passing and overtaking on what it tends to be a difficult track to overtake in the dry. So Magic Poop Cannon right on the back here of Lewis Craig, almost touching. Some great action here. But it'll be interesting to see. Do you reckon we'll see any pit stops, genuine pit stops for a change of tyres here, Roy? As actually, we'll go on board with Magic Poop Cannon, as he's coming down. Not sure if he's using any battery here to try and get past. He looks up the inside, but nothing doing. Back to my question there, Roy.
I don't think we will, because even though this is a circuit where, it is a bit harder on tyres, and there are a lot more, there are a few more laps at this circuit than you get at the average circuit, but I can't imagine there being a pit stop in this race. It depends, unless the tyres wear away significantly. I just don't think you're going to get that benefit, as Jack Craig retires from the race. He must have spun on the exit of turn number 2 and has hit that wall on the outside of turn number 3. So Jack Craig then, he recovered well in qualifying at the very end to jump up to P5, but he's now out of this race on lap number 4, as Wet Lemons has built a 2-second gap, and Magic Poop Cannon, he's clearly quicker than Lewis Craig, I'd say, but he just can't get past. I think he's running more aero than the Red Bull ahead of him.
Yeah, indeed, as we saw some good onboard action there from Mike Noon, trying to attempt to get around Daniel P. Wheelnut, but the opportunity not quite there yet, as Magic Poop Cannon as well lining up Lewis Craig for a pass possibly, but seems to be a bit further back this lap, as we'll go on board with Mike Noon. Mike Noon lining up now. Daniel P. Wheelnut getting very wide in that last corner. Looked like he touched the wall, not quite sure there, but Daniel P. Wheelnut looking to be struggling in these conditions, Roy, as Mike Noon did look to go up the inside there, but thought better of it.
Yeah, it seems that there's a battle for P2 and a battle for P4, and in both instances, it's the driver behind who has more pace. And actually, Mike Noon has a significant part of his front wing missing. So Mike Noon, then he's still all over the back of Wheelnut despite that damage. I don't think the Mercedes has, if he has wing damage, it's not as bad as Mike. So Mike then seems to have found more pace by losing some of his wing, but that to me tells me that Mike Noon is could very well have been a factor in this race had he not picked up that wing damage from wherever it is he picked it up from.
Indeed, as we're actually going to go on board with Jacko here. He is right on the back of Seiya Sports now as this little gaggle of cars is closing up, and Seiya Sports having to defend from Speed Sully behind him. Looks like he's getting a bit out of shape as he's coming around that long right-hander. We're going to go on board with Speed Sully right on the back of Jacko here. Is he going to try and make a move up around the outside of the first corner here? Breaks later, goes around. Jacko giving him nice room. He's had to really cut on that inside and has driven out wide, and Jacko's actually come back at him. So some fantastic racing here and some really good respect between the drivers as Wet Lemons gets the fastest lap of the race with Lewis Craig right behind, also trying to close that gap, but nothing happening. We're going to stay on board with Speed Sully. Oh, Jacko nearly loses it and really has to correct there, and Speed Sully has a much easier attempt to go around, and Jacko's going to get right on the back here. Is he going to try and stick it up the inside? He is. He goes up the inside. Oh, there was nearly contact, and it actually allows an official passer to get around Jacko there, and he's lost two places there effectively, Roy.
Yeah, and I noticed Parsa hit the wall on the final corner. I don't know if he's picked up any minor wing damage. Of course, aesthetically, he's still got his end plates intact. But yeah, Jacko then looked like he was going to make a move on Seiya Sports and ended up losing 2 places in about half a lap. So, bit of a disaster then for the Mercedes drivers. Parsa runs very wide over those curbs. I'm actually surprised he managed to keep the car aligned. But well, Lemons then kind of managing the gap at the front with Magic Poop Cannon still all over the back of Lewis Craig. Lewis Craig about 10% more on his available deployment, with Mike Noon, who is now ahead of Wheelnut for P4, P4, I don't know why I said number, but yeah, Mike Noon, it's such a shame he's got that wing damage because I feel like he could be so much quicker.
Indeed, as Magic Poop Cannon actually set the fastest middle sector of the race there, according to my screen.
Mike Noon with a moment.
Mike Noon
with a major moment in that final corner, and he's lost P4 as a result of it. So somehow, despite the understeer from that damaged wing, he's managed to go into a slide, and Daniel P. Wheelnut has streaked ahead, and all of Mike Noon's work has been undone.
That's a shame, and drivers do have to really modulate the throttle going through that last corner, as it definitely it's catching them out. So drivers are going to have to be a bit more careful to make sure that they don't lose their race completely here. Mike Noon, a lucky man, where we've got Speed Sully back down in 9th here, right on the back of Seiya Sports still. So still all to play for in this race, but we're going to follow this for a bit, as it seems to be the closest battle on track. We'll go on board. Really getting quite close, and some different lines actually appearing here, Roy, and drivers taking slightly different lines. Is this to try and manage some of the tail happy moments that the drivers are experiencing, or is it just a case of what's comfortable for them?
I think it's just trying to explore the grip levels, and just, sometimes an unconventional line can work just to straighten out the car a bit earlier and apply more power. And I think in the case of Magic Poop Cannon, he'll be trying everything he can just to see where he can potentially make a move, because by the looks of things, it does seem like he has roughly the same level of downforce. And actually, Lewis Craig there made a bit of a mistake on the final corner, and Magic Poop Cannon now all over the back of the Red Bull driver, and he's finally managed to get past Lewis Craig for P2. So Magic Poop Cannon then finally with clean air for the first time in this race, 3.6 seconds down. If he is quicker than Wet Lemons, it's not over yet. We still have 10 laps of this race to go. So 10 and a half really. And Magic Poop Cannon then can finally chase after Wet Lemons after being stuck behind Lewis Craig for the first 8 laps of this race. Yeah,
it was a great opportunistic move there, as Lewis Craig did make a mistake coming out of that final corner. It looked like he was nearly touching the wall again, but we saw Speed Sully caught the last part of Speed Sully trying to... and he's just rear-ended Seiya Sports going through there. Luckily, Seiya Sports wasn't taken out of the race, but Speed Sully getting a bit impatient behind Seiya Sports and has now backed off because of that move. Oh, you've got to be careful here. Seiya Sports looks like he's got some kind of damage. Has to go really, really wide through that corner, and Speed Sully's through, so I'm not sure if he's got diffuser damage or something there, Roy, but not good for Seiya Sports at the moment.
I think he just took too much of that curb and he just kind of skated off into the gravel. Couldn't slow the car down. We'll see how he drives over the next few corners as Wet Lemon sets another fastest lap of this race. Magic Poop Cannon immediately though sets a new fastest lap. So Magic Poop Cannon then only 2.9 seconds. I'm sorry, three seconds now off the lead. So Magic Poop Cannon, I think that's actually 6 tenths he's gained on that lap.
Yeah, so Magic Poop Cannon really on a drive now to go for that win in the Netherlands. Can he do it? 3.2 seconds is currently the gap. So we'll keep an eye on that as we're halfway through the race now. And it seems to be settling down between the drivers a bit more here, with the closest battle on track appearing to be between Mshep and Neljak at 1.3 seconds. So, yeah, just maybe a section of the race where drivers is now starting to maybe make a few mistakes, maybe not being able to follow the cars in front as well. But yeah, as Mshep actually takes a lot of curb going through there. I'm not sure how he kept that all together in that Aston Martin, but drivers maybe starting to lose the edge of concentration as Daniel P. Wheelnut now actually closing up to the back of Mike Noon. So yeah, hard to follow which battle we should stick with, Roy.
Well, one driver I'm gonna follow is Sayer Sports, who's just gone onto the soft tires and Wet Lemons pits. So I think it's dry enough now for slick tires because the top three have all decided to pit. So I was going to say the track does look a lot drier, and yeah, I wasn't surprised when I saw Sayer Sports pit. I thought, okay, maybe he's actually gone for something different here, and he has indeed. Sayer Sports was the first to jump the gun. Um, Actually, I believe it was the back three. So the ones at the back decided to pit, and I think the leaders are now following suit. Wet Lemons opting for the mediums, Magic Poop Cannon the soft tires. And I think softs can last for the rest of this race. So if I was in this position, I would have gone for the softs. But Magic Poop Cannon then, game on, I think.
Yeah, indeed, as Neljak seems to be the only one who seems to have stayed out. Maybe there was a congestion in the pit lane that didn't allow him to actually pit. His official passer gets the fastest lap at 1:17.5 on those soft tyres, and Wet Lemons right on the back of Neljak here. So it's clearly the crossover point as DRS is enabled as well for the drivers. So Wet Lemons obviously driving for position here, and he's just spun and oh my goodness, he's just hit the wall. I don't know how much wing damage he's got from that, but that is a massive mistake. And he just can't get it forwards. Wet Lemons has gone from hero to zero in this race in one corner, Roy.
Yeah, like it would be nice if I didn't get a helicopter shot. I can't actually tell how much of his front wing is left, but yeah, absolute disaster for Wet Lemons. He's still in a podium spot after that, but yeah, his tyres will be ruined as well after that spin as well. So he's going to have to drive carefully over these next few corners. As Neljak pits from the lead, and I can see Wet Lemons, he does have damage on the right side of that front wing, so I'd imagine Wheelnut will be all over him now, and will probably soon be past him. But Wet Lemons then, he's lucky the field a little bit spread out as Sayer Sports sets new fastest lap of this race. But yeah, Wet Lemons would be kicking himself after that, and now Magic Poop Cannon has a 4.5 second lead out front.
Incredible. Just as we thought this race was going to start settling down and the rain stops, the drivers come in, and our leader loses it in one corner. Just a bit too much throttle by the looks of things, going a bit offline, not on the dry line. But yeah, as I say, anything can happen in TGB2, and it usually does. As Daniel P. Whelan trying to go up the inside here, got to be careful that he doesn't go offline and do the same thing that Wet Lemons did. Wet Lemons is very, very slow through this section. Daniel P. Whelan going up the inside. He's going to have DRS. He's using his battery. He's going to try and go around the outside into this corner. Is he going to be the later of the late breakers? There's a bit of contact between them, a bit of wheel banging. Daniel P. Whelan has to go up the inside here and go over that curb as they're still side by side. Is Daniel P. Whelan going to concede the place going through this corner? He is. And will he get the better drive from Magic Poop Cannon, as he has got much better drive there and is really, he's going to have to be careful. That's going to still be a little bit wet, but he's going to cruise past here. He's going to cruise past with that DRS and probably that battery use as well, and that seems to be a done deal, Roy.
Yeah, I'm surprised Wet Lemons actually defended that as hard as he did, because it was inevitable that Wheelnut was going to pass him, given the extent of his wing damage, as Mike Noon now sets new fastest lap of the race. He, of course, would have lost time in the pits due to the wing damage that he picked up, the other Alfa Romeo in the first half of the race. So it's looking pretty expensive for Alfa Romeo. I hope they have another front wing in there if needs be. But Magic Poop Cannon beginning to streak clear now of Lewis Craig. He's got a 5-second lead, 5.3-second lead over the Red Bull driver. But of course, Lewis Craig will be happy enough with
Oh,
this because Wet Lemons is behind. We have an incident further back. It's a
yeah, Neljak
Ferrari of
has just
Neljak.
spun it. Yeah, he's just spun it going around that long right-hander, and he's actually beached it now on the curb. He's going to have to try and reset the track. I don't know if that's going to be allowed and if he's going to get a penalty from the TGP stewards for that, but he is absolutely beached and going nowhere at the moment. I was hoping to see how that battle would have carried out as Neljak was on the mediums and M-Shep on the softs, and we would have seen the tyre delta. But we've actually
Oh
got a
dear.
disqualification from the session because he's parked in a dangerous spot. So going from bad to worse for Neljak, and now out of the race as we actually go on board with M-Shep as he's closing down on Seiya Sports here. He's going to go up the inside, less of the late breakers, and it's a great little move there from M-Shep. But Seiya Sports coming back round the outside. Oh, there's a bit of contact as well. Yeah, it looks like M-Shep has got that done for now, Roy.
Yeah, M-Chef seemingly enjoying the dry conditions a good bit more than the wet conditions. He's now up into the top six. And we've zero track limit penalties so far from the drivers, so everyone keeping it within the white lines. I mean, okay, granted, this track is probably one of the easier ones apart from that penultimate corner. As we see another incident, it's Mike Noon. He's gone for a spin at turns 2 and 3, and has
Oh,
spin
and
back around
Seiya
on the
Sports
banking.
has just... Oh, he's just got too wide on that curb and he's gone for a spin. So Seiya Sports and Mike Noon in the space of 2 corners together, going for spins as they just seem to be pushing those track limits a little bit, getting too much on the curb, and probably the curb still being a little bit wet there, Roy. So, yeah, unfortunate for the drivers. And I think after those 2 spins now, there's hardly any battles on track at the moment.
Yeah, that tends to be the case with the wet races. Now that it's all dried up, everyone's a bit too far away from each other. It's such a shame that Wet Lemons had that spin, not only for his championship, but just this race in general, because Magic Poop Cannon was closing in on the Alfa Romeo driver, and we could have had much more of a battle for the lead. But as it stands, then everyone's a bit further apart. But Wet Lemons, I think, will soon have to worry about Speed Sully, who is catching him with a less damaged car.
Yeah, as Mike Noon actually loses his place to Kaya here, so I don't know what kind of damage he's carrying at the moment. Maybe Kaya with the softer tyres is able to, as we actually are seeing some rain appearing here on the screen again. Not sure if this is causing, oh my goodness, Kaya out of the session, loses it on the final corner. I was on board with Mike Noon and just saw that in the corner of my eye. So I don't know if this rain is affecting the drivers, Roy, but that was a big smash from Kaya.
Yeah, Kaya then, are you disappointed with that one? DRS disabled. Okay, I don't know if I've ever seen this before when the rain comes back. I don't remember that actually even being a feature of this game.
Wet Lemons is in the pits.
Then decides to pit. Why are they pitting?
It must be too wet yet again for the drivers as the DRS was disabled, and it looks like they're going back onto the intermediate tyres there, Roy.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that though. I mean, like, it seems very light at the moment, and the track does still seem fairly dry. But I mean, I suppose if it does start, bucketing down, then yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I wonder this could be now. This is where it gets interesting because the top 3 are still out there. Actually, yeah, it's very greasy.
Yeah, it looks very greasy. Are we going to
track.
see a Belgium 2008 rerun here with the drivers trying to stay out, trying to eke it out with track position, or will we see these drivers then enter the pits as they are really struggling at the moment as they're coming through, really taking that last corner cautiously? They are going to come into the pits, so looks like Daniel P. Wheelnut is the last of the dry tyre runners to come into the pits. M-Shep is on the wet intermediate tyres here. Is he the net leader at the moment, Roy?
I think Magic Poop Cannon will have enough breathing room because it was still fairly okay for most of that lap. It was just in that final sector that things got pretty bad. But yeah, I mean, I kind of stand by my earlier comment. It doesn't even seem like it's raining that hard around most camera angles. But yeah, no, that track is definitely too wet for slicks right now. As Magic Poop Cannon exits the pits and still in the lead of the race, and he's a good bit clear of Lewis Craig now. The gap has increased once again. And Magic Poop Cannon, of course, was the quicker driver of these top two in the wet conditions. But Wet Lemons has actually dropped behind M Shep. Of course, Wet Lemons would have had to change front wing in that pit stop. So we've a battle on now for P4.
As say Sports get a 5 second
Oh,
time
there's Mike
penalty for
Noon.
speeding in the pit lane. Mike Noon out of the race now. Looks like he's gone for a spin on that long curb section that has been catching the drivers out all race. But Daniel P. Wheelnut, now up into the podium positions, really seems to have worked this one out in the pit stops. So really happy for his race here, as he's 2.7 seconds ahead of M Shep. And M Shep, I've just gone on board with him, and he's had a moment. He's lost his front wing. That's going to have to probably come in for another pit stop. So unfortunate for his race. Drivers are starting to lose their concentration and making silly mistakes here. So an unfortunate one for M Shep. But it's Speed Sully right on the back of him. He's probably going to get him in the next set of corners. But drivers really starting to make a few mistakes here, Roy.
Yeah, like I said earlier, M Shep's preferring the dry conditions. I think that's definitely true. The rain is returned, and M Shep is. He's not really going to fall down the field. There's not really much of a field left to actually fall down. So I think he might as well stay out here. He's got a 9 second gap. He's not going to stay out, but yeah, because I mean he's going to lose one place, but. Actually, he might lose two, actually, because obviously he has to spend the extra time repairing the wing. So I would have stayed out in that situation. He's only got 2 laps left. He had a 9 second lead over the car behind. 13 seconds further back is Chris Johnson. I think he could have stayed out and lost only one place, but he may lose 2 now. In fact, he will lose 2 as Chris Johnson flies past. I think Sayre Sports here may even be a bit of a threat here, because M Shep will have cold tyres once again, and Sayre Sports, his tyres will be up to temperature. But yeah, I would have stayed out in M Shep's situation.
Yeah, so M Shep there, lucky not to lose another place to Sayre Sports. But as we look through the order and we've got 2 laps to go, it's Magic Poop Cannon and Lewis Craig who seem to have been the people who kept relatively cool during this quite dramatic race. And Lewis Craig lost the place in the first couple of laps, as we've got a yellow sector flag for sector 2 there, but doesn't seem to be too much of a drama. But Lewis Craig lost that place in the first couple of laps to Wet Lemons, but seems to be doing okay in this race, Roy.
Yeah, exactly. As we see Magic Poop Cannon with that 9 second lead, Wheelnut has very much fallen off the back of this. But look at this now, Wet Lemons. Now that the rain has returned, he's able to recover some ground here and could potentially end up back on this podium. Of course, he was looking at either a first or second place, but third may have to do for the time being, unless someone makes a mistake on this final lap. But I'd imagine, given the field spread, everyone's just going to be taking it pretty cautiously.
Indeed, as we're going to go on board with Magic Poop Cannon to finish out this race. He's going to come round the last set of corners here in the Netherlands. A great drive from him. He's really kept his cool, done what he's needed to do in the pits, and he's taken it nice and cautiously round this banked corner to take the win in the Netherlands. A victory weave for Magic Poop Cannon. A great run there, and he takes first place. Lewis Craig coming around this final corner as well. He's still pushing by the looks of things, maybe going for a fastest lap attempt, and he celebrates with his team on the pit wall there. Daniel P. Wheelnut coming round the last couple of corners. Wet Lemon seems to be too far back. Hopefully Wheelnut keeps it nice and tidy through here, as he does, and he is going to take a fantastic podium in third place. Wet Lemons, maybe a bit of a race to forget for Wet Lemons in fourth place here, as he could have well and truly taken the win there. Speed Sully coming across the line in fifth place, with Jacko coming around the final corner. He'll take sixth place, providing he keeps it on the road. Chris Johnson a little bit wide there, coming through the last set of corners, but he seems to be doing okay. The chatty man himself coming around the final corner to take seventh place. Sayre Sports does have that 5 second time penalty, so he'll probably lose the place to M Shep. And M Shep coming across the line will take that, and then I can't remember who was in 10th there. I missed it, unfortunately.
It was Marco.
Marco taking 10th place. So quite the dramatic race here as Jacko actually gets driver of the day with that interesting mugshot in the Mercedes liveried race suit. But we're going to come back to the podium here. It's all about Magic Poop Cannon winning in the Netherlands in the changeable conditions. A great drive for him and Lewis Craig as well, and Daniel P. Wheelnut to finalise out that podium. Going to have the spraying of the champagne. Williams really, really happy with the results here. A nice big smile there from Magic Poop Cannon. The engineers looking up in pride to him. And yeah, a fantastic set of racing there, Roy. I have to hand it to Magic Poop Cannon there. It's probably the driver who had the most composure out there, Roy.
Yeah, I'd say Magic Poop Cannon there would have to be the driver of the day. It's such a shame that we didn't see the battle between himself and Wet Lemons, 14 Wet Lemons having that spin. Several drivers spinning out there, and of course several drivers crashing out of the race due to the nature of the track and weather condition combination. But yeah, Magic Poop Cannon taking a very well-deserved victory. Just a 10th off the fastest lap. Lewis Craig getting the extra point there, so 19 points there for Lewis Craig, who is scoring more points, 7 more points than his championship rival.
Indeed. So yeah, let's run through your orders. So Magic Poop Cannon and Lewis Craig obviously taking the first and second place, with Daniel P. Wheelnut rounding out the podium. Wet Lemons, a race to forget for him in fourth place, and Speed Sully recovering in fifth, with Jacko in sixth, Chris Johnson in seventh, M. Shep in eighth, Say Sports in ninth, and Mick Schumacher rounding out your top 10. Then we're going to go through the DNFs of Mike Noon, Kaya, Parser, Jack Craig, Bazza, and Nell Jack, the only person to get disqualified in this session for unfortunately getting beached on that curb after a spin. But yeah, fantastic set of racing in the Netherlands, and we are now going to move over to our second race of the night in Belgium. So as we said earlier in the stream, a completely almost polar opposite circuit to the Netherlands, with lots of high speed areas. Drivers really having to look at their setups and compromise whether it's going to be a bit more downforce for the middle sector, or they're going to take off some downforce for the fast first and third sectors of this race. So is it hard to find the right balance when it comes to setup in Belgium, Roy?
For me, like in terms of lap time, technically yes, just pure lap time. But I have always gone for low downforce around here because it just helps so much when you're attacking and defending. And it's the same for any track really. I always go with the lowest downforce that I can possibly go with. You know, it may not feel as nice to drive, but it will always be the best option, I feel, because high downforce makes it very, very difficult to overtake people.
Yeah, I'd have to agree there. You know, you've got to be careful going through the sections of like La Source and Puon and even the first corner, that you don't lose the back end as you start to put the power down again. But if you've got a high downforce down here, you tend to be a bit of a sitting duck. So it'll be interesting to see which direction the drivers do go with their setups in qualifying and obviously in the race as well, to try and maximise their results here tonight. But Belgium marks the halfway point in the season, and we do actually have a 43 points gap separating the top 5 constructors. We don't speak about the constructors too much, obviously, as we speak about the drivers, but still an important one for the drivers. And Alfa Romeo is leading the constructors at the moment, but 43 points seems like a lot, but realistically it could swing either way. And how easily can it sway the wrong way when it comes to a result like it was in the Netherlands, Roy?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Well, Lemons could have had a much worse outcome with that crash that he had. And we have a wet qualifying here for Belgium, so you'd want to get out quick because it's a long track. But unless it dries up later on, which hopefully it does, at least it's not one of those sessions where it goes from dry to wet, because those qualifying sessions are always quite boring because there's no point at the end. But yeah, I mean, that's thing, 43 points, it does seem like a lot, but I mean, that is the amount of points you'd score for a 1-2 finish, so it is possible to get you know, a large amount clear, or a large amount, you know, caught up to your rivals in the space of a race. So definitely far from over at this halfway stage in the season.
Indeed, yeah, as we see this first set of drivers out on their outlaps, and it is full wet for Kaya. It does look very, very wet as he seems to be uh, struggling along that straight. Please don't try and go full throttle through Eau Rouge here because it'll end up in tears. Chris Johnson, as well, our chatty man from the podcast, has also gone out on the full wet as well. So it looks like it's going to be full wet running here for qualifying at the moment. Mike Noon on full wets too. So we'll stay with Kaya as he is first out on the track. We're going to go on board with him and just see how bad these conditions are as he is finishing the last source section here and coming into this tricky downhill right-hander, which really understeers you out wide, and he's just staying within track limits as he's going out here. So a real struggle for the drivers here. And please don't try and take too much curb because it could spit you out the wrong way. We're coming up to P1 here, the fast left-hander. Kaya trying to take as much track here to try and
Grass off
maximize
the
speed.
surface.
And Kaya, yeah, he's now gone for a spin in P1. So, yeah, really, really struggling with the conditions here. But yeah, who do you expect here, Roy, to really maximise this qualifying in these terrible conditions?
I think we'd be looking at the drivers who were quick in the last race we just had. I think Wet Lemons tends to enjoy these conditions, as does Magic Poop Cannon. I think the two of them typically are the quick drivers in wet conditions. Lewis Craig didn't really seem to have the confidence of the drivers around him in that previous race that we just had. Parsa as well, I think sometimes can be quite quick in the wet as well, but didn't really have a whole lot of evidence of that in the previous race. Perhaps this game not really suiting him. So yeah, I think at the front, I think the favourites would have to be Wet Lemons and forgot his name now, Magic Poop Cannon, of course, with potentially then Speed Sully, of course, and Mike Noon getting up there as well.
Yes, it's a good selection there, but we're going to go on board with Wet Lemons for this first flying lap attempt. Roy, if you could do the honours here to talk us through this lap as we start to go, it's going to be an interesting one. We'll stay on board. He's managed to recover it, and he'll probably go for attempts. So yeah, over to you, Roy.
So it's a difficult braking zone here at La Source. You kind of want to take it as tightly as you possibly can. He hits the curb there quite nicely. Do not go on that orange sausage curb on the exit there, and decently done there for Wet Lemons. Of course, a banker lap at this stage is very, very important. Now, Eau Rouge and Radion probably not flat out in these conditions. Bit of understeer there for the Alfa Romeo. Still just kind of testing the waters here. Of course, he wouldn't have really been able to do that on his outlap because it's basically at the pit exit. Very long uphill straight here. This is where we see a lot of overtaking in the race. And keep it neat and tidy through Lacombe. Don't take all of the road through the first part because you need to open up the following corners here, and he does that fairly nicely. Avoids too much of that exit curve. There is a horrible bump on the exit there. Now here we go, this Bruxelles corner, it's very off camber, and there's plenty of different lines you can take through there. Wet Lemons opting to sort of go through the middle of it, and you don't want to take too much of that exit curve through the spotter's corner as we have Poo on here. This is very easy to invalidate your lap and also to spin your car. If you take too much curb, which he has done, very surprised that he didn't spin it there. He had to let off the throttle quite easily. Through the Fania chicane, do not take too much speed through the opening part. You need to open up the exit of the corner, open up that left-hander, and this corner here is very frustrating. You just need to bide your time, be patient and precise as you need to open it up, because this corner, actually not flat out in these conditions, quite difficult there to get the speed balanced through there. And this will probably flat out until the end of the lap. Will he lift through Blanchimont? He will, actually. I'd imagine drivers will be getting a lot braver as the session progresses. Only got one lap on the board. Lewis Craig's actually out of the session, and the bus stop chicane then, just like all chicanes, you don't want to take too much speed through the opening part, and he's understeering a lot through the exit of the bus stop. Wet Lemons then crosses the line. He's 2/10 slower than Chris Johnson, but crucially putting a lap time on the board. We've already got two retirements in Lewis Craig and Kaya. So at this stage, it's all about finding the limit and building up your lap, your speed as the qualifying session progresses.
Thank you for talking us through that lap, Roy. Really insightful. As yeah, let's go back to the actual incident between Lewis Craig and what appeared to be Mick Schumacher as well. As I did look on the track map during that lap, and it looked like there might have been a spin out of Puon, and maybe a collision, which has given Mick Schumacher a 5 second 5 second, 5 place grid drop for the race. So not sure what's going on there as Pistol Passer gets very wide and quite close to the wall. But yeah, drivers just need to be really, really careful about traffic out here and careful for drivers that may be in front spinning as well. As we actually saw Speed Sully set the fastest lap time of the session so far with a 2 minutes point two in this session. So yeah, drivers still looking to get that banker lap down, but can we expect to see much more time taken off these times throughout the session, Roy?
I would say so, yeah, because I think the thing with Belgium is that it's nowadays in a Formula One car, it's quite easy in the dry. Corners like Radion, Blanchimont, they're easily flat out. You don't really put a whole lot of thought into it. Whereas when it's a full wet session like this, you really have to think about how much speed you're going to take through these corners. It's a huge, it's risk versus reward in these conditions. And if you get it right, you can really find yourself gaining a whole chunk of time. So I definitely would expect us to dip below the 2 minute marker. But I think the drivers will only have two more runs at this because of the length of the lap. So that's why I was saying at the start, get out quickly because you don't really have time for four runs around here unless you pit immediately from your out lap.
Indeed, as Parser does actually invalidate this lap, so that's going to be some time taken off in there for the session. But Chris Johnson, sorry, Speed Sully, M Shep now actually getting into the top three as well, and Daniel P. Wheelnut now putting his attempt in, just a tenth behind Speed Sully. So we're going to see plenty of this as drivers starting to get braver and braver throughout the session. We're likely going to see them just staying out and setting lap time after lap time until maybe going into the pits for a final attempt with low fuel to see if they can really maximize their lap times here for that all important podium start. So yeah, just I suppose we just need to stick with the driver and just see what is going to happen and try and look out for the ones that might be spinning, Roy.
Yeah, or the ones that might be invalidating their laps, as Magic Poop Cannon has just done. You won't be happy with that. I thought he was actually going to hit the inside of the pit wall there. I hate the pit entry at this circuit. It's really awkward and clumsy. But yeah, so Magic Poop Cannon and Mike Noon halfway through this session yet to set a lap. We've got Mike Noon on an out lap. Magic Poop Cannon has just returned to the pits. It was Blanchimont that he invalidated his lap on, so that's going to be extra frustrating for the Williams driver. But yeah, at the moment then Speed Sully with provisional pole, but of course only halfway through the session. The rain's still coming down, so I don't expect to switch to inters, so looks like it's going to be full wet throughout.
Oh, just on board with Mike Noon, nearly binning it in the wall there as he went into a half spin coming out of is it Lake Carmel, La Source at the top of the hill after the Camel Straight? I can never remember the
Is it
name.
Malmedy? It's the third corner Malmedy, I think.
Malmedy, yeah. So coming out of Malmedy, maybe getting a bit too much throttle. As oh, Mike Noon again, nearly losing the back end. Maybe it's these cold tyres. Maybe he's just a bit too happy on the throttle, but really not looking happy out there as a driver going on the inside. Mike Noon,
Oh,
oh my goodness! Oh,
oh, that's wing damage.
that's wing damage indeed. I can't quite see from this camera angle if he is taking off a end plate. Which yes, he
He
has,
has,
and
yeah.
oh my goodness, nearly losing it again. So Mike
This
Noon
is an
really,
out
really
lap.
not happy with this setup in qualifying. As we've got a yellow sector one, hopefully just a driver letting another driver through there. But Mike Noon's going to have to come in and pit and lose more time, changing that as he really, really is struggling to keep it straight and on the road in these conditions. So maybe he's got a dry setup here and anticipating a dry start to the race or a dry race in general. As he's just
What is
spun
he?
again. That is interesting, an interesting line there from Mike Noon. So yeah, we'll leave him in peace to pirouette on his own as Speed Sully on an outlap here. He's currently on pole, provisional pole with a 2 minute point two. Let's see if he can improve on that time. And if these times will start to tumble down, Chris Johnson's actually on a lap attempt at the moment, highest up at the moment in the order on a lap attempt. So let's go on board with him as he's coming into the bus stop chicane. And getting it nice and tidy through the first section. He's actually going to come into the pits, so thought he might be going for an attempt there. Go back on with Speed Sully as he's about to start his lap, coming up to the bus stop chicane as well. Be interesting to see if drivers are going to try and maximise this corner here. I know in TGP1 some drivers really take the wide line to get the best drive and try and get as many tenths as they can. But maybe something that they'll do in the dry more than the wet. But Speed Sully comes over the start finish line. He's a bit wide from that first corner, but hopefully he hasn't lost too much time. And importantly, as you said in your lap review, he's avoided that sausage curb. Let's see how brave he is going to be through Eau Rouge and Radion. Takes Eau Rouge well through Radion. He's hit that curb nicely, and yeah, that seems to be quite tidy there, Roy.
Yeah, he did have a downshift in the middle of it, so it definitely isn't flat out from what I can see. And let's see his sector 1 time. It's actually somehow quicker than his previous attempt. Oh, he's sliding there through Lecom. You see a lot of understeer in this car. Maybe he's just trying to take too much speed through the corners, but this is what I mean about finding the limit. There's definitely a whole lot more time based on the corners I've seen so far from him. He's still up on his time. But I'd reckon he could be several tenths quicker than what he's currently doing. But fairly nice through the left-hander there from the Ferrari. Let's see how much speed he's going to dare carry through. Pouon, a bit of understeer again here, but it's nicer than when we were on board with Wet Lemons, I will say that. And let's see, Fania then. Fairly neat and tidy through the opening part. That's just what you want. Doesn't take too much curb, almost too much curb through that through the exit of Fania there, and understeer again. That corner's awful. It's a bit off camber. Now, how brave would he be through here? He's only 4 tenths up on his previous time, and not really the ideal speed trajectory through there. He kind of had to slow down as he was on the exit of the corner. He should have slowed down earlier to carry the speed through on the exit. Blanchemont's still not flat out, well within track limits though, so he's all good in that regard. And just the final chicane to go then for Speed Sully. Tight enough on the opening part. Maybe would have wanted to slow the car down just a bit more to open up that exit and go towards the line, but it's a 59.5 now for Speed Sully, and that's with that pretty poor turn 1 and also Lecom.
Great attempt there as we actually go on board with Wet Lemon. Seems to be he's nearly 6 tenths up on his first attempt, so really could be challenging Speed Sully here if he can get this last sector right as he comes into the bus stop chicane. Nicely on the brakes there. Is he going to make the first part? He clips that curb quite nicely, and he clips the second quite nicely too. Can he get a good drive here? Decent drive, and he's nice and tight to the pit wall. What's this attempt going to be? And it's a 2.2. So yeah, not as fast as we actually have official passer as well on an attempt. He's just under 2 tenths up on his first sector time as he comes into Pouon. Nicely clipped there. He's just gone a bit wide. I wonder if that's going to be invalidated. It is.
It was invalid before that.
I was too busy looking at his apexes there. So Passer's going to have to go again with 3.5 minutes left in the session. For the drivers. So Daniel P. Wheelnut is in the pits now, looking to be turned around for his final attempt. Jacko coming through the last corner here. He's on the intermediates, interestingly. So I wonder if he's going to find any additional time here on the intermediate tyres. Is it dry enough for the intermediates, do you reckon?
Difficult to tell, but it seems drivable. He's short shifting out of the first corner. So, I mean, it's not the worst decision considering he's actually managed to keep it on the track, and as I say that, he very much nearly finds the wall. But, it looks like he is, based on that corner there, was a bit too slidey for the Inters. Could wanted to try something different there and move up the grid. He's a 10th down on his previous first sector. So, the crossover point, it could be close, but I don't think it is... it's optimal just yet, and even if there was going to be a crossover point, he's still out a bit early unless he's fueled up for extra laps. But he's got a lot of understeer in that car. I think it might just be just a bit too wet potentially at this moment.
Daniel P. Wheelnut also opting for the intermediate tyres. He seems to be taking Eau and Radion much better than Jacko was, so maybe he's got a decent setup here to challenge for pole position. And we also have M Shep in the pits, probably waiting to go out on the intermediate tyres as well as a last ditch attempt, hoping that that the conditions will just dry up enough for the intermediate tyres to really give them an advantage. But the top three at the moment on the wet tyres, and obviously still currently holding those top three positions. Speed Sully has pitted now. Looks like his qualifying is over. He's not going to be able to turn that around in time in order to go for another pole attempt. So he is finished in the session. Magic Poop Cannon seems to be on a flyer at the moment. He's a tenth up on his current time going through the first sector. So he's going to be one to watch for pole position here. Let's stay on board with him as we actually do see a little lag spike on his screen. So nothing to worry about there. But coming through the no-name corner, as I call it, but I'm sure it does have a name now, Roy. But yeah,
like
coming through Puon, it's he's nice and tight there. It doesn't go too out wide to invalidate and doesn't take too much curve. So he's looking strong at the moment. We'll see what his Sector 2 time is soon. But he's looking very tidy at the moment, Roy.
Yeah, it could be right on the crossover point. You could potentially, confidence gains you a lot of time. As you can see, he's nearly 8/10 up on his previous attempt. Speed Sully getting his timing all wrong there. Potentially the same for Jacko as well, because if you're going to change tyres at the end, you need to make sure it's at the end. He was a good 2 minutes too early there. But Magic Poop Cannon then could be about to absolutely smash this pole time here if he doesn't completely mess up the bus stop chicane, which he has not done. Jack Craig retiring from the session to start no higher than 12th. Magic Poop Cannon then across the line, and it's a 1:58.9. He has indeed smashed the pole time. We've got Wet Lemons then coming out of the bus stop at the end of his qualifying session. Let's see, where does the Alfa Romeo driver find himself? It's an improvement in time, but not in position. 2 minute flat. We've got Wheelnut out there. He's improving on his first sector, and Jacko then will not be starting any higher than 5th in this. M Shep has just started a lap as well, so he's got his timing absolutely perfect there. So I think M Shep will be the last driver across the line, unless it's Mike Noon. No, it's not. So M Shep then will be the final driver across the line.
Yeah, so we're on board with Daniel P. Wheelnut as he's coming through Puon, and it looks like he's got a decent amount of traction here, as he's actually looks like he's got a bit of rotation in the car there, but nothing to worry about. Coming through, I can't remember the name of the chicane. You're much better with the corner names than I am, Roy, but he's taken plenty of curbs, so he seems to have confidence in the car. Coming through this off-camber right-hander, we're going to see what his Sector 2 time is coming through here, and his Sector 2 time is a second up on his previous attempt. So Daniel P. Wheelnut in a great position here to take pole position. Let's hope that he gains more time coming through this long left-hander and into the bus stop chicane. Daniel P. Wheelnut really pushing at the moment and seems to have great confidence in the car. Pick your braking point here nicely and make sure you hit those apexes. He seems to be in a bit in the middle of the track there, not utilising the full width of the track, but it looks like nice and tidy through there. He just gets the power down, sticks to the right-hand side, coming across the line. It's going to be pole position for Daniel P. Wheelnut, provisional pole, 1:58.6. We're going to go on board with M. Shep, who will be the final runner across the line. He's 6/10 down, according to my screen here. But
Wet Lemons crashed.
Oh, and Wet Lemons has crashed, and that's his session over. So M. Shep,
Mike Noon
coming, and he's gone wide there. Maybe not going to be there, but Mike Noon finishes his. We weren't on board with it, but that's a 2:01.7 for Mike Noon. So maybe made a mistake as M. Shep taking lots of curve through the bus stop. And he's half spun it and invalidated anyway. So yeah, that appears to be qualifying over. So yeah, a great pole position there for Daniel P. Wheelnut, Roy.
Yeah, he got that absolutely right. It would have been interesting to see how Wet Lemons would have done had he been able to finish that lap. It did seem to be, kind of right on the crossover point. It's only 2/10 between first and second there. Speed Sully got his timing all wrong, as did Jacko, really. Jacko was out far too early, and Speed Sully started that second attempt far too late. But 3/10 between first and second. But brilliant strategy and lap time there from Daniel P. Wheelnut.
Indeed, as we'll run through your order. So yeah, great pole position there for Daniel P. Wheelnut in changeable conditions and really timed that well. Magic Poop Cannon also a great second place for him, 3/10 back on the wet tyres. Speed Sully getting his timing wrong in third place there with Wet Lemons in fourth and Jacko in fifth. M. Shep in sixth place with Officially Passer in seventh. Chris Johnson in eighth with Say Sports in ninth and Neljack rounding out our top 10. Bazzer in 11th, Mike Noon in 12th, Jack Craig in 13th, Mick Schumacher in 14th, Lewis Craig, one to forget for him in 15th place, and Kaya rounding out your order in 16th place. Not sure on what the weather report is for the race here, Roy, whether we're going to see any further wet running. I've been told that it should be a wet race
Hmm.
for the actual race uh, weather conditions, sorry. So we'll soon find out if that's going to be a wet start or yes, it is going to be a wet start. Doesn't look to be as heavy rain as it was in qualifying, so maybe an intermediate running for the drivers, but don't know if it's going to get any drier throughout the session either, Roy.
Yeah, those look like intermediates in the Mercedes garage. So yeah, I would expect this to be an intermediate start. Um, Potentially, I mean, who knows? Hopefully, it's a race where there will be a tire compound change, but we'll find out.
We'll soon find out as the drivers are making their last preparations on the grid, ready to start this wet Belgium race. As we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lights illuminated, and lights are out, and away they go. And Daniel P. Wheelnut gets a good start with Magic Poop Cannon getting a decent start as well. As I can't quite tell, as we've actually got Jacko now going up the inside here, and it's going to get all bunched up towards it. And Daniel P. Wheelnut driving Magic Poop Cannon quite wide out there as they have to go across the sausage curbs. Some drivers going quite wide out there as Magic Poop Cannon now right on the back of Daniel P. Wheelnut. We're actually going to go on board with him and see if he's going to do anything through Eau Rouge and Radion. He does ease off, and that means that M. Shep is now right on the back of him. And this is going to be interesting going up to the Camel Straight as they're all line astern, lining up that slipstream, maybe using some battery to see if they can make the attempt. Daniel P. Wheelnut moving up to the inside. Is M.
Oh,
Shep
M
now
Shep.
going up the inside as well? It's going to be nearly 3 wide. Oh, and M. Shep and Magic Poop kind of make contact on Wet Lemons as well. And luckily, it doesn't seem to be any damage, but they're still side by side going through here as M. Shep now goes a bit wide. And I'm not sure if he lost it a little bit there, but goodness me, dramatic start here, but seems to be relatively clean still, Roy.
Yeah, well, that tells me there is M-Shep is running a fully dry setup, which is why he was struggling in qualifying and why he was an absolute rocket ship down that Kemmel Straight. So I'd expect him to probably struggle from this point onwards now that there's actual corners to contend with. But I think Speed Sully picked up damage at the first corner there in the braking zone. I believe he hit the back of someone's car. And we have an Alfa Romeo off in the background. That's Mike Noon. He's in the wall in the exit of Pouon. So Mike Noon then with another race to forget, as there's not really a whole lot of recovery that you can do from this point onwards. But Wheelnut then 1.2 seconds clear of Magic Poop Cannon currently, but of course Magic Poop Cannon did sort of have a charging M-Shep to deal with.
Indeed, as we're seeing now, Wet Lemons is on the back of M. Shep here. Seems to be losing a bit of time as M. Shep does have that lower downforce set up by the looks of things, and we've got a passer on the back of Wet Lemons here as well. So yeah, still all to play for here, and not a huge amount of bunching as we've got Jacko up the inside here of Officially Passer, now being driven wide out here as Daniel P. Wheelnut does set that fastest lap on the first lap of the race, but Jacko getting really argy-bargy and Passer trying to put him back in his place. It seems to be oh my goodness, seems to be lots of weaving there and a bit dangerous maybe from Passer, so got to try and calm it down here a bit, boys, as you're going through. You don't want to be getting penalties and you don't want to be taking your fellow man out, as that will really, really penalise you from the steward. But yeah, Jacko right on the back here, and he goes to the left-hand side. Oh my goodness, it's a huge crash! It's a massive crash. I don't know what Parson was thinking, but he's taken both himself and Jacko out of the race there. And that is such a shame because we thought we were going to see a great battle coming up the Camel Straight, and they've taken each other out, Roy.
Yeah, that's entirely Parsons' fault. He just put Jacko in the wall, basically.
Sorry to interrupt. There's a great gaggle here coming into this long downhill left-hander between Say Sports Bazza, Neljack, and Jack Craig, as they were almost going 3 wide at one point, but all bunched up. But yeah, sorry to interrupt there, but yeah, it wasn't a great choice there from Passer. I don't know if he maybe hit some standing water or if he was trying to defend too hard, but either way, it wasn't great form from him, was it?
Yeah, no, even the defending into La Source was pretty dodgy. There definitely was two moves under that braking zone there, but yeah, we do at least have, as Jack was left assertion, I don't really blame him to be honest. But yeah, Baza then heading this train of cars from P6 down to P11. Lewis Craig making his way up to P10 on the second lap of this race. So plenty of time for him to move his way up the field. I think he can still get a decent result if the pace is there. Mick Schumacher beginning to sort of drop off the back of this train now as the bottom three drivers have had incidents. They're not really in contention as Magic Poop Cannon sets the fastest lap of the race. He's beginning to reel Daniel P. Wheelnut in. It's like Zandvoort all over again.
It is, and yeah, we've been concentrating on some of the back runners there, and a lot of the action taking place as Jack Craig now actually gains a place on Say Sports. But yeah, Magic Poop Cannon 7 tenths, 8 tenths behind Daniel P. Wheelnut. So that lead of his was eroded. We've got a yellow sector 3 for Kaya by the looks of things, but we won't go to that as we'll stay on board with this battle for the podium, really hotting up as M-Shep really utilising that low downforce section. Low downforce setup, sorry, for the first sector, and really reeling in Magic Poop Cannon. Can he stay with them throughout the twisty section of sector 2? I'm not sure yet, as he seems to be dropping off yet again, but yeah, it's still all to play for here. We're going to go on board with this gaggle here of Baz and Neljak, and then obviously the runners behind them, all very close, within contention of each other. So yeah, still an interesting race with 3 laps in, Roy.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually battles across the field here. There's not many cars that are kind of by themselves here, apart from the 3 at the back. There's only really Wet Lemons and Chris Johnson who've got a bit of breathing room, as M-Shep is indeed falling behind in the second sector of this track. But yeah, huge gaggle of cars here in the midfield, all kind of biding their time, waiting to see where their rivals are going to make a mistake and where their strengths and weaknesses are. Of course, downforce levels at this track, as we see with M-Shep, clearly trying a dry setup philosophy with mixed results. As Sarah Sports there, I thought he was going to take too much curb heading onto the back straight. Well, it's not really straight, is it? But heading onto the back stretch. Losing a bit of time there to Jack Craig, but Lewis Craig still P10 then, but he's all over the back of Joe Sayer in the McLaren. Will he make a move? He's taking a wider line into the bus stop as the 2 cars ahead of him have a bit of a squabble. He tries to dive up the inside of Joe there as he had a bit of wheel spin, but in the end there had to back off and has lost a bit of ground as Sarah Sports actually picks up a time penalty. It's the first one of this race, and I don't think it'll be the last.
No, as Say Sports actually picked up that time penalty, trying to go up the inside of Jack Craig. Jack Craig squeezing him, so you won't be too happy with that, as he did make the attempt, but he's really dropped off the back now of Jack Craig. Lewis Craig is much closer. Speed Sully sets the fastest lap time of the race. We've got a yellow sector 2 for what I can only imagine is possibly a spin from one of the Ferraris. Unsure here, but Lewis Craig going to try and go up the inside here. Is he going to be late braking? Not enough, but he has put Sayer Sports off his line, but with no real result here. As Neljak now trying to go up the inside of this downhill right-hander. Oh, there's a little bit of contact there, and I hope that hasn't put off the drivers too much, but it seems to be that they're okay. And yeah, great move there from Neljak.
Yeah, I could see that coming before it happened. I was like, oh no, this is an off-camber corner, it's wet, be careful. Bit of contact there, but just about within reason. It was a bit more touring cars than F1, but yeah, he's made it through, and he's now up into P6 to see if he can catch Chris Johnson 5.5 seconds back. But Baza then, yeah, still maybe not quite with the pace of the drivers behind. Jack Craig, his teammate, will be the next driver, so let's see if he plays the team game, if indeed Jack is quicker, as Mike Noon has retired from this race. Not really too surprising.
No, as we actually, M-Shep gets a 3-second time penalty there, but we were actually on board with Magic Poop Cannon as he did close the gap to under half a second on Daniel P. Wheelnut through that middle sector. So Magic Poop Cannon seems to be carrying a lot more downforce than Daniel P. Wheelnut, as Daniel P. Wheelnut is losing Magic Poop Cannon on the straights, as it seems Poop Cannon is closing him on the corners. So this one is an interesting one. Daniel P. Wheelnut really needs to make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes through that middle sector, as he will get passed by Poop Cannon. Poop Cannon ready to pounce at any given time, but this seems to be slowing down a little bit here. So we're going to go on board with Jack Craig on the back of Bazza here, his teammate. Will there be team orders to let the faster driver through? We're not sure yet. We'll see how that develops. But Jack Craig didn't get the greatest line through there, and seems to have dropped off a bit as well. So drivers keeping it relatively clean and tidy, obviously, other than the Parsa Jacko instance. And yeah, I wonder if we will see a pit stop here. We saw on the graphic before that there could be a pit stop, or drivers could go to the end on the first set tyres that they actually fitted. But yeah, it'd be an interesting one to see, Roy.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect a pit stop unless we get a change in the conditions out there. It seems fairly stable at the moment. I think Lewis Craig did have an incident there through Radion. He's dropped behind Marco in the Williams and is now P11. No damage done from what I can see, but yeah, it's not really going his way. I don't really think he likes the wet conditions anywhere near as much as he does dry conditions. At one point we did think he was going to run away with this championship, but yeah, no, he does have his moments where it doesn't really go to his plan, and Wet Lemons then is going to claw back a lot of the points that he lost in Zandvoort. As things stand, of course, Wet Lemons was leading a lot of that race and came undone. So we still have over half of this race left to go. Kaya is the latest driver to retire from the session, so we've just got 12 drivers left now in the running, with still around that half-second gap between the leaders.
Yeah, and that actually closed up significantly this lap, and Magic Poop Cannon seems to be closer than ever on Daniel P. Wheelnut. I wonder if he's going to try and make an attempt through on the Kemmel Straight here. I don't know if he's going to have the lack of downforce to be able to keep up with him, as the gap does increase to 7.5 tenths through this faster section. So yeah, it seems to be a frustrating one for Magic Poop Cannon here, but he'll need to bide his time and just wait to see if Daniel P. Wheelnut does make a mistake for him to be able to pounce on that. But Lewis Craig does get that position back off Mick Schumacher. Not on screen at the moment, but I did see it change in the order. So yeah, this one will be one to definitely keep an eye on. But we're going to go see what the battle looks like between Jack Craig and Bazza at the moment, as Lewis Craig's actually lost the place again to Mick Schumacher. So maybe Mick Schumacher running a lot less downforce than him at the moment, but a frustrating race for Lewis Craig, especially for his championship at the moment, Roy.
Yeah, I don't think battling with Marco for P10 is really what Lewis envisioned here, and you can see he's just so much quicker than the driver in front of him, but not really finding a way past. Like yourself, I didn't see how Mick Schumacher got back past. My God, it's a big difference in pace there, as Lewis Craig manages to find his way up the inside at Pouan there, and Mick Schumacher also picking up a penalty in the middle of that. Took way too much curb on the entry, but Lewis Craig can now focus on getting back up to this. Well, I just want to say this train, but it's kind of it's lost a lot of its carriages. Now Jack's gone further up the road. Bazza and Jack Craig are kind of still together, as is Sayre Sports. So yeah, kind of running out of time now is Lewis Craig.
Yeah, it is. It's Magic Poop Cannon 4 tenths behind Daniel P. Wheelnut going on to the the pit straight. Sorry, is he's almost alongside him going into the first corner, and it seems to be again very, very close. 3.5 tenths now. Maybe using some battery to try and keep up with him. Maybe he's found what he needs to do to keep up with him on these straights, but it's 5 tenths now. The gap is increasing between the drivers, so I'm not sure if you can see their battery levels at the moment, Roy, but Magic Poop Cannon seems to be closer than ever in this race through this sector. So Daniel P. Wheelnut under a lot of pressure. We're going to stick with this.
Yeah, their battery levels are actually quite similar. Wheelnut with just a few percent more, about 8% more than Magic Poop Cannon, so it is fairly even in that regard. And I think it does look like that Daniel is running less downforce, so it's going to be very difficult for Magic Poop Cannon to actually find any room to get past, because they seem similarly paced out there. There's really not much between them. The gap is very stable at the front, so I wouldn't it may take a mistake from Wheelnut, and you never know. I mean, this is a difficult track, track limits as well. Also very, very very, very tough to adhere to around here. And but look at this though, Magic Poop Cannon probably the closest he's ever been, but that was a bit of understeer, and Wilnut gets the better exit.
Indeed, as we do see Chris Johnson right on the back of Wet Lemons here. Wet Lemons not having that wet running that he did in the Netherlands by the looks of things. Chris Johnson really, really pushing him along here. We're going to stick with this one as the gap between Daniel P. Wheelnut and Magic Poop Cannon is increasing. Going to go on board with Chris Johnson here as we go through this fast left-hander coming up to the pit stop chicane. He has had to ease off a bit, but he's got a great section here. He's going to go to the outside, and he's getting squeezed by Wet Lemons. Is he going to try and make the move around the outside of the first corner and on the inside of the second? Yes, he is. He seems to have got that done very nicely. But Wet Lemons into the pits is an interesting turn here.
Unless it's time for wets, I don't really see why he's done that. He did, by the looks of things, sort of hit that outside wall. So hopefully for him, he hasn't damaged his wing on the way into the pits. They're not going to change the wing. It is wet tyres, actually, for Wet Lemons. But nobody else has come into the pits. No one ahead of him and no one behind him has decided to make that decision. So... yeah, this will be interesting now because there's not a whole lot of time left in this race, and crucially for Wet Lemons, he is ahead of Marco and the Williams. So yeah, Wet Lemons obviously not feeling it out there, and has given up a lot of track position. He's now behind Lewis Craig. He's 5.7 seconds back, so it'll be very interesting to see the gap between those two drivers.
Indeed, as we actually saw the gap between Daniel P. Wheelnut and Magic Poop Cannon drop to 2/10 through the after the Camel Straight. Sorry, so yeah, it seems to be the corners where Magic Poop Cannon is really, really making up that time. Maybe there was a small mistake from Daniel P. Wheelnut, but not enough to allow Poop Cannon through. So this is definitely the closest battle on track at the moment, and maybe a frustrating one for Magic Poop Cannon not being able to keep up, as Jack Craig does get a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. 4 drivers in this race with penalties applied to their times at the moment, so definitely a risk for these top 2 drivers and could completely change their outcome should they pick up one. So yeah, the gap dropping down to 8/10 again. So yeah, Magic Poop Cannon still biding his time patiently and quite rightly as well, as we do have a yellow sector for sector 2, but it doesn't look like there seems to be too much drama there. But what do you think Magic Poop Cannon needs to do here if Daniel P. Wheelnut doesn't make any mistakes, Roy?
Just drive faster. There's not really, there's not much else really, because I think Daniel does have slightly less wing level than Magic Poop Cannon, so it is difficult to see where he's going to find that opportunity other than catching him by surprise. But he's not able to, the downforce levels are not different enough so that he can find an opportunist move somewhere else along the circuit, because they're still fairly evenly matched through that middle sector. So Magic Poop Cannon, he's never really close enough to actually just dive down the inside of him. So he tries to drive around the outside of him there. I think he is beginning now to look for different lines, but when you're so evenly matched and when there's no DRS or anything, it is just very hard, and sometimes there may just not be the opportunity to arise.
Indeed, as we actually saw Sayer Sports coming into the pits as well, and I'm not sure if it was for damage repair or he's gone now to the full wet tyres as well. Looking down the order to Wet Lemons, he's 4.3 seconds behind Lewis Craig at the moment. I'm not sure if that gap is reducing or not. Haven't been tracking it.
Yeah, it was. I think it was 5.6 when he left the pits.
Right. Okay. So maybe the full wet tyres coming to him now but will he have enough time to really make up those positions that he lost? Not 100% sure on that, but yeah, we'll see how that develops.
Yeah, because I think also Lewis Craig, I think he did pass Sayer Sports as well in the process of that. But also we're pointing out that Wet Lemons is probably quicker than Lewis Craig anyway, because Wet Lemons was, of course, at the sharper end of the field, whereas Lewis Craig hasn't really made a whole lot of progress since the start of the race. So Wet Lemons then, I feel like he's just throwing away a lot of points unnecessarily here. I don't really see how this works. They're about to start the final lap, so unless it starts pouring rain, I can't really see any progression here for Wet Lemons.
Yeah, an interesting one here is Magic Poop Cannon really has dropped off the back of
Oh,
Daniel P. Wheelnut along this straight. So, um, yeah, seems to be this could be the order that we're going to finish in here between these two. But yeah, well, it's the closest battle at the moment. Maybe Lewis Craig on the back of his brother Jack Craig as they're coming through the Eau Rouge Radion section. Um, Jack Craig obviously has that time penalty, so as it currently stands, he will get the position in the results, but not necessarily on track. But yeah, seems to be settling down a little bit here. But Lewis Craig, will he be able to make the move around his brother there, Roy?
yeah. You kind of think, they're not teammates in the championship, but of course they are siblings. But I think Jack Craig may. I don't think there'd be too much fighting here between the two of them because Jack, of course, has that penalty, so Lewis will just move ahead anyway. And I think he's too far behind Baza to really make any kind of impact, and he's comfortable enough in front of Wet Lemons. The gap now 2.8 seconds, but I can't really see Wet Lemons falling in that gap. Actually, well, okay, now the situation has changed. As Wet Lemons then is well within 3 seconds, and now both Jack and Lewis have penalties here, so it will be interesting to see. I don't think Lewis has the pace though to get ahead of Jack. I think the gap has actually increased.
Oh, and
Over this
Lewis!
lap.
Oh my goodness! Sorry, we're on board with Magic Poop Cannon. He outbraked himself and rear-ended Daniel P. Wheelnut. And Daniel P. Wheelnut is not going to be happy with that. Hopefully, he doesn't have any diffuser damage, but that frustration seems to have boiled over. And yeah,
Was
Magic Poop
damage.
Cannon has got front wing damage from that. Lost the front wing end plate on the left hand side, and he does touch Daniel P. Wheelnut again. These frustrations on the final lap and a final ditch attempt to try and get first place from him has really hindered him. But he's right on the back here of Daniel P. Wheelnut and almost pushing him up the hill. But
Oh.
because of that wing damage, isn't able to actually keep it behind him. So yeah, don't really understand why he tried to do something like that. He could have just bided his time. But
Oh, watch
yeah,
M-Shep here. M-Shep with the dry setup. They're battling. M-Shep and Chris Johnson battling now for the last of the podium places. M-Shep has a lot more straight line speed than Chris Johnson, but not quite enough. I think Chris Johnson's kind of going in between a wet and dry setup, but not much M-Shep could have done there, and he would have lost the podium anyway because of that penalty. And he has a big moment on the exit of Malmedy there. I think he's actually going to lose the position to Nail Jack as well. But yeah, Magic Poop Cannon, I think he actually had the strategy right there. He had saved up some of his deployment to attack at the end, but just the execution there hasn't paid off for him after hitting the back of the Mercedes in front of him.
yeah, indeed. As yeah, it's a shame really. We thought we could have saw some really good action going into the final lap there, but it wasn't to be. So we're going to stick on board with our leader, Daniel P. Wheelnut. He's commanded from the front of the field throughout this whole race. Yes, he's had the pressure from Magic Poop Cannon throughout it, but he's been able to deal with that pressure accordingly, and he's gone the right way with his setup for the race. So Daniel P. Wheelnut coming through the last few corners of the bus stop chicane uh, and to take a commanding victory here in Belgium and add to his points tally in the championship. It's a victory read for Daniel P. Wheelnut as he comes across the line to take first position. Magic Poop Cannon in second place. Unfortunate with that collision with Daniel P. Wheelnut at the end of the second to last lap, but that'll be a second place for him so far. Chris Johnson coming around the final corner to take third place in these wet conditions here, with Neljack coming across the line in fourth and M. Shep in fifth, but Bazza will take fifth from him because of the penalty, so he's in sixth in the end. Jack Craig coming across the line in seventh, as we actually saw a spinner in the background of Wet Lemons. Wet Lemons losing it, and will he lose some more positions? I don't think he will, with Speed Sully being 21 seconds behind him there, but that was an interesting one. Probably got a boot full of throttle there, and just that was unfortunate for him. But Speed Sully seems to have had a bit of a moment there and had a spin. I'm not 100% sure what's going on here, but he's gone very, very wide at the last corner, and he could actually lose out to... We had a battle here for the last few positions coming across the line, and yeah, I don't quite know what happened there.
I think the biggest story from this race is Wet Lemons. I, the more I think about it, the more it just doesn't make any sense. Um, but but yeah, clearly didn't feel comfortable on the intermediates. But sometimes what's comfortable is not what's fast.
No, indeed, but it's all about this man today, Daniel P. Wheelnut, commanding lead throughout the whole race. Didn't seem to waver whatsoever. Had a great strategy with his setup, and he will take the first position trophy for Mercedes. The Mercedes boys very happy with that. And Magic Poop Cannon there. Maybe some bad blood between them after this race, and maybe a discussion that will be had in the drivers room. But yeah, he seems happy enough with this anyway in these wet conditions in Belgium, and he'll be happy with those additional points towards his championship fight. So we'll run through your order there, as Daniel P. Wheelnut did take first position, and Magic Poop Cannon in second, with Chris Johnson rounding out the podium there, with Nell Jack in fourth and Bazra in fifth. M. Shep in sixth, with Jack Craig and Lewis Craig as siblings in sixth, seventh and eighth position. Wet Lemons in eighth, and Speed Sully in ninth, rounding out your top 10 and taking the fastest lap of the race. The rest of the order is Sayers Sports with Mick Schumacher in 12th, RT Kaya in 13th, Mike Doon in 14th position. A race again for him to forget, as he does DNF, with Parser in 15th and Jacko and Parser's instant, meaning he was in 16th place. But yeah, some really good racing in Belgium that we did see. Some frustrations as well boiling over towards the end of the race there. But I'll have to give my driver of the day to Daniel P. Wheelnut in Belgium. Who's yours, Roy?
I'd have to agree with that. Yeah, he managed it perfectly, and whilst it was a bit unspectacular to watch because nothing apart from that incident at the end at the bus stop chicane, nothing really happened. But I can guarantee, like, having been in that position myself, that was not a boring race for him. That was definitely tension for the full 11 laps. Because one mistake and Magic Poop Cannon would have had the opportunity to get ahead. So fantastic drive and composure there from Daniel P. Wheelnut, and starting qualifying as well with that with the right strategy and with the clean lap to get himself onto pole position. So very well deserved win there for Daniel P. Wheelnut.
Agreed. And looking across the two races of tonight, and I'd probably actually give Daniel P. Wheelnut my overall driver of the night as well. He did really well in the Netherlands. Got the strategy right to take that podium position in the end, I believe, and then obviously a commanding win here in Belgium as well. So my overall driver of the night has to be Daniel P. Wheelnut. Would you agree there, Roy?
I would, yeah. I think Magic Poop Cannon, I would say second, because of course he did win in Zandvoort. He did actually get more points tonight than Daniel, but I think Daniel maximised his opportunities because he didn't have the pace in Zandvoort, but yet he still managed to keep it on the track and pick up a podium. So yeah, I'd say Daniel P. Wheelnut perhaps had the stronger night. You could maybe, because you could say Magic Poop Cannon perhaps should have won both of these races tonight, but in terms of execution, I think Daniel P. Wheelnut had the better night tonight.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. Just not quite maximising his opportunities. Magic Poop Cannon and Daniel P. Wheelnut, obviously he was. But yeah, fantastic night of racing between the drivers. Some real dramatic moments with wet to dry race in Zandvoort and a fully wet race in Belgium, always shaking up the order as well, which is great to see. Nights to forget for Lewis Craig and Speed Sully and Wet Lemons as well. And I'm not sure what the standings are going to look like at the end of this, but I'm sure this will have really started to shake up the drivers and the constructors' titles as well. Any final thoughts there, Roy, before we sign off for the evening?
Well, hopefully in the future we'll see some great battles towards the front as we did tonight, and yeah, I think for Wet Lemons this is a night to forget, and hopefully he'll get his momentum back, and we'll see more great action in the future.
Thank you for that, Roy. So yeah, closing it out now. Please join us next week for rounds 11 and 12, I believe, which are Abu Dhabi and Bahrain respectively. We do have the stewards enabling the safety car for Abu Dhabi, just as a note there, so we could see some strategy shake-ups if the safety car is deployed during that. But yeah, please join us for those rounds next week. I've been Mr. Chappelli, joined by Jovial Manatee in the commentary box. And as always, see you on PS4.